So F5 Local Traffic Manager, iApps configuration now. So now we're going to get into those details about the templates and the profiles and the cool things put together to do faster rollouts of my applications, my detailed applications. So let's go ahead and get started. So we're here in our lab device, okay, so on the virtual machine, so basically just our web browser to admin into it. And what we want to start with is to go ahead and set up our analytic profile before we actually do the iApp part. Because remember, that's the part that had to come first. So local traffic and profiles. Now notice in here, I don't have analytics. So this is kind of going to be a key indicator to me. So what I want to do is actually scroll down and kind of check that out on the system level. Where I can go into resource provisioning. So we'll notice right here, scroll this up a little bit. So I've got the lab license, so I'm licensed for everything, but like my AVR, so right here that we have stuff, is not actually provisioned. So that's going to be the pretty, important and obvious reason as to why we don't see that on there. So really, for the purposes of demonstration, I'm actually going to move over to the live device, the 1600 that we have, not the VM device, I should say the physical device. They're both live devices, but the physical device that we have, because I do have AVR on there. So bear with me for a second. We'll just move over to that. Alright, now on here, and this by the way is an older version of software, we'll kind of update that and fix that stuff later on. But on here, notice that I go into profiles and I do have analytics as one of my options down here. So this is going to be kind of the important part to start as far as that goes. So I have one base profile, so analytics profile in here. We can go ahead and click on it and take a look at it. And again, just like any other profile, don't change things on the built-in one because they'll be inherited by any child that you bring into there. So best practice is just to create a new one and make any specific changes that you want to do. But here's the idea for it as far as profile name and where it's at. You can put a description, yada, yada, yada. It tells you all the things about logging, about traffic capturing, which we can do that also. Details for that, by the way, we'll get into in our troubleshooting nugget. So I deliberately hadn't talked about that before. But notification type stuff like that, you'll see all of these things in here. So that kind of gives you the idea. So let's go ahead and go back into my analytics and let's, create a new one. See what we can, where are we at? There we are, create. So profile name is where we're going to start, and you can name it anything you want to. And we'll just call it, test, analytics. Okay, that'd be good. Parent profile analytics. Don't need a description, anything like that in there. Let's see. Most of the things we can keep the same. My logging, I do want to do internal. Okay. My traffic capturing, that's fine. Notification, I'm going to go ahead and change this because we'll go ahead and enable it to syslog. And typically we'd worry about having a syslog server and stuff set up. I'm not going to worry too much about that now because on this particular device, even though it is a physical box, I don't have it hooked up with real servers and services. So we're going to actually use this to kind of demonstrate going through the configuration. Okay? But everything else we can put on there. Virtual server is not going to bother with those right now because our iApp will actually put that into it. And then on here, if there's anything different you do or do not want. So we can customize. We can do this for customize for all of them. Let's see. We'll do it for URLs that were listed, client IP addresses. This way we can get more of the web-based stuff on here. And let's do page load time also. So again, it's whatever you want for that particular application. This is the stuff that makes, that is going to make the difference for you. for me, it's just an exercise of clicking things on here because, like I said, there's no live stuff going on. Alerts and thresholds, so this whole section down here, we can set up for things, basically creating our active rule sets here, but we can get down to, the minimum transactions per second or maximum average transactions per second, latency time, page load time, so all of these options that we have in here to kind of give me abilities where I can say that if we are above it, if we're below it, whatever number that we have for X period of time, then do something. Either an application, a virtual server, a pool member, that I can get notified. Right? So these may be very important to us where, like, you may have, if there's a pool member that suddenly has higher latency, it's a pretty good indicator there's a CPU issue going on, but something's happening in there, so you may set this up where the latency increases. Here's a threshold on a pool member, let me know, because this way I get notified and I can dispatch the proper person to go look at that pool member and figure out what the heck is actually happening. Because remember, we're all looking at doing this for our user experience. So possibly by setting these thresholds, I may find out things that are not working well before my users actually experience any problems, or at least alert me to any problems in there. Okay? So just kind of cool things that we can do as far as where we're at for setting up this analytics side of things. So this gives me like I said, the different options that we have available to it. Capture filtering, let me go ahead and do this one too. So I can do some traffic capturing or stuff that if I want to do that. Now, notice, by the way, when I did that, this entire menu down here showed up. So as we get into this, and again, picturing it, just capturing for test analytics is the default name that comes up. Capture requests, let's do headers, responses, just do headers only. Everything else I'd probably go ahead and leave as default, because it'll all be changed by the iApp anyway. But that just kind of gives me some ideas to play with. We'll spend more time with the capture portion of this in our troubleshooting section, so just one step at a time here. But just know that it appears, know that it shows up that way. And when we're done, just go ahead and click Finished, and it'll put all this stuff on here, and now I have my test analytics. So all the cool things. So I've finished setting up my profile for my analytics. Now the next part, of course, is to go into iApp right here. Now in iApp, under my application services, right now I don't have any application service profiles in there. If I start looking at templates, however, I've got a lot of different templates going on, so a lot of different things that we have, and these, by the way, do change from one version to the next. So when we look at newer versions, I'll find some different ones in here than I do in this. I think this is running 11.2 if I remember. Where's my dashboard? I can figure this out. Yeah, okay, so we're running 11.1 on here right now. So newer versions, 11.5 is what the VMs were running, may have completely different options for that on there. So kind of just take a look at those things. It gives you something to take a look at. But pick whatever one you want on here. The HTTP is kind of a good place to start. We're really not going to scroll through these things in detail because, like I said, these are 3 different programming languages, if you will. So my implementation right here is TickleScript, or TMSH script, but a Tickle variant. But it gives you the idea as far as what's going to be programmed or how we're going to do it in here, what code can be put in. And you can certainly customize this. The next part right here is my presentation. This is an APL script, which will start, this is how we get the questions and where you're going to get the information and what passes things back up to that implementation portion. So this is my web GUI, if you will, of making sure to get the right questions answered. And then there's the HTML help, so if you have any problems with things or questions as you go along, there is some help files built in. I can create my own versions of these templates as well. There's nothing wrong with doing that, but it does take a lot of work. There are some on Dev Central you can download, so you can get them from other people and whatnot, and certainly get in there. You can also contract F5 to assist in the creation of these iApp templates as well. So if there is something specific that you have that's beyond the scope of what they give you already, there certainly are options whether you want to do it yourself or not. So on my application services right here, let's go ahead and create one. Let's see what we got. And I'll just call this test HTTP iApp. And the template, we'll go ahead and pick that, and I'll just do it as the F5 HTTP. So that's kind of my, I guess, my simple starting point here. Now, these are all of the questions that it's going to happen to ask me, all the steps that you want to go through and kind of see where they're at. Okay? So as we get in here, and notice, by the way, that it has analytics. Okay? If I say yes to this, I'm going to create a custom profile, and I can pick from the list. This is why we have to have the analytics profile created before we deploy the iApp to create the application profile. So because it's done, it'll be created through the scripting portion midstream. Okay, not really something that's easily modified afterwards. So that's the important piece in there. But go ahead and put that in. But you'll notice, by the way, that this is just kind of what it says. You know, this template supports most simple web server implementations, yada, yada, yada. You know, provision all the things, and then starts asking you questions. Like, what IP address for virtual server? What IP address do you want to use? I'll pick 192.168.201.240. I know we're not using that. Port 80 is perfectly cool. HTTP servers have a route back. Yes, we'll keep it simple for that. Are they served with NTLM authentication? No, don't have to worry about that. Do you want to offload SSL? No. Let's see. So we will create a new pool here. We can use existing pools, but create a new pool. My standard, you know, whatever things that you want to do, we'll just keep it at round robin. And I can go ahead and add servers in here. Let's pick ones that I'm not actually using. So 31, and we'll do no connection limits to it. Oops, you put a comma there. And we'll just put one more. Whoop. If I'm clicked in the box, it works a whole lot better. Okay. So add that in. That's cool. Do want to queue TCP requests? No, don't worry about that. Do want to create a health monitor? We'll go ahead and use an existing monitor and just keep it as the HTTP. You know, we can pick whichever one we want, but the simple HTTP one is perfectly fine. Will they be coming in primarily over LAN or a WAN? This is just to kind of help us optimize the protocols. We'll just call it a WAN for right now, kind of leave things that way, even though it is technically LAN environments, but whatever. We'll just leave it like that. But go ahead and click on Finished. Now, what this will do, and this, depending on what template we're using and what questions we're answered in here, this may take up to 10 minutes to actually fully deploy. Some fields contained errors. What do you have errors? Oh, all right, you got one too many of those. Cool. So, go back and remove the blank one, and now say Finished. So good news is it tells us about those things in there, is exactly what's happening. Now, what we do have is in my list, I do have an application profile. So that's perfectly cool. So got all this stuff in here. I can go ahead and do reconfiguration. If I want to do this, what it's going to do is retrieve all the necessary configuration for things and re-ask me questions. Not going to worry about that. From a scripting point of view, by the way, if I'm doing reconfigure, because remember, these are all CLI-based commands that actually get pushed. So instead of doing a TMSH create, I'm doing a TMSH modify. So that's what happens when I'm reconfiguring. Small difference, but I guess a fairly important one. What we can see in here, however, is components specific to this application now. Now, this gives me a fairly powerful way to monitor the application, whereas before, if I'm in my local traffic setup where I'm looking at my virtual servers, I may sit here and go, well, boy, I don't remember what server is tied to which thing, because maybe I named things really stupid back then, or better yet, you inherited from somebody else. We'll blame somebody else. You and I didn't make this problem. Somebody else did. Okay, so, but anyway, this type of view makes it a lot easier to, really administer and kind of watch and see what's going on. I can still drill down. Okay, so like my pool shows offline, which is, well, because they don't exist, but whatever. So when I'm looking at this on here, I can still click in here and get to the pool just as if I went to local traffic, pools, pool list, and picked this right here. Okay, now it does name it fairly nicely, the test HTTP-IApp, which is what I created, and then underscore pool. Okay, it tells me the application that's associated with it. So there are a lot of things tied together that we can see visually going on here, but it gives me just a, like I said, a nice way of monitoring that. I should be able to hit back. There we go. Okay. But again, shows me my status of everything, sees what's going on, shows me the profiles that are put in there. It automatically did a cookie persistence profile. Okay, so I use that for some of my monitoring, my analytics and stuff like that in there. So really it gives me a lot of cool things enabled magically, okay, or by default, as part of the template rollout in there. So that's kind of the neat thing as far as what we're seeing in there. Now, other things that we can do, we can look at analytics. Now, of course, it's not going to tell us anything yet, basically because there's no relevant traffic. They're not real servers. I don't have anything going on yet, so it's kind of hard to analyze stuff. Makes perfect sense. On real systems where we had real traffic going on, especially as we went out and did some test web pages and refresh from a client point of view, we would start to see information in here. And I can view by, all sorts of different things, whether I want the application, which is default, or virtual server, or pool member, or specific URLs, because we said that's what we were looking for, or client IP addresses, basically the stuff that we said we wanted to gather information on, all right here. And my time period filter as well, or other filters that I can do. So very powerful way of looking at things specific to, and go back again, specific to this one application that we rolled out. Okay? So just a very neat way of looking at things on here. Now, one other part that I want to do, let me open up a new tab, is get into devcentral.f5.com. Alright, now when we start to do this, and it's giving me all sorts of different things that I can go in and take a look at on here, you do need to create an account. I'm not actually signed in on this one right at the moment, but create an account, give yourself a profile for stuff, so that you can start to participate in discussions, in looking at things, the articles that they have, or more importantly, downloads. Now, there's lots of different information on here. What I would do, let's scroll down here a bit, is, here we go, iApps. Just click on the recent tags, and you'll see all of the things involving iApps, where we can get a new one. So data center firewall iApp, or a cloud connector iApp. Whether it's being able to get things from other people, or look at what other people are doing, or just asking questions on your own that, hey, I've got this problem, somebody help me with this. All sorts of cool things that are revolved around here in a community designed to assist you with the deployments. So it's not like you're just in this by yourself. iApps are great. They're powerful. They can be very confusing and daunting, especially if you're creating one, but they don't have to be. You've got resources around to help you, so use those. So we got into really the configuration of my iApps at this point in time. Went through the part about the analytics profiles and actually created one in there. Got all that part going. Then we actually did the iApp itself and really saw some cool things, both as far as what the template asked us, is how it went through the different pieces. We saw the component list, and really a way both of monitoring and drilling down and getting into the information, really of everything surrounding on a per application basis. Okay, so remember, what we're doing here is my application profile specific to the one application that we actually happen to be dealing with at the time. Looked at the analytics, looked at the other stuff. Oh yeah, we also looked at Dev Central. So a way of getting other people and other resources and finding other information to help us out as we go. So very powerful stuff, all again surrounding my application profile or helping me out deploy my applications. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.